This lecture summary was brought to you by KidSense Media.
For those of you who've joined us previously, we've talked about sensory processing, which really involves the awareness of your body and knowing where all of your muscles are in space and making sure that they're feeding the information to you. Without that, if you don't know where your body is, you just can't plan it very well. And this is probably one of the things that we most often see in kids with poor coordination, is they just don't have that good awareness of their body. Unfortunately, that sensory processing has a significant impact on your muscle strength, but more so your tone, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The way that your muscles work then influence whether you can maintain an upright posture or whether you tend to slump dreadfully. Whether in fact you have an awareness of keeping your body in alignment, or whether in fact you might be out of alignment without recognising that. All of which then has nasty implications for your eyes, your spine, and overall your integration of information. The way that you position your body then influences whether you can move with great control or with lots of loose control, all of which then contributes to the actual outcome, not only in terms of how skillful it looks, but also in how tired you get too. So what I'm really keen to share with you is, and I know you know this because you're here to start with, there's so much more involved in coordination than just to get in there, kick a ball, hop, skip and jump. In terms of looking at the body awareness though, what we know is that for any movement that you do, you actually have two muscle groups that have to work at the same time. So you have to have one muscle group that bends up, and at the same time another muscle group that relaxes enough for the muscles to stretch out. The trouble then is, if that coordination isn't working well, you end up either very floppy or very rigid. What you start to realise is that in school and kindergarten you see little 2D robot kids that operate in this manner, and they don't have the capacity to move and rotate at the trunk. And what happens for some of them is as soon as they bend a little bit, they flop all the way. They don't have that middle range of movement, or they don't have control over that middle range, I should suggest. What this then means is that you get awareness of different muscle types. For those of you who've talked with us about sensory integration, we've talked about this in terms of alertness levels, that some kids are the hyper ticker kids and some of them are the really slow and sleepy kids that are like Eeyore. But in fact this is true from a muscular point of view. If Eeyore was a real person, he would have floppy muscles, which would mean that he has to work harder than the child sitting next to him to do any kind of movement. These are the kids that we often consider to be low muscle tone. What we mean by that is that the muscles are not ready to work rapidly. So it's a bit like an elastic band. If an elastic band is new and working well, it pulls quite a long way, but it springs back to its original state. The kids with low muscle tone are like the rubber band that's been used for a long time. It's gone a little bit fluffy around the edges, and when you pull it, it kind of moves back, but not very rapidly, and probably not to its original state either. So this is the challenge we have with those low muscle tone kids. Often what happens is they're sending all the right messages to their muscles, but the muscles are just going, I'm on vacation, give me 5 minutes. Unfortunately, when you're going head over heels, you haven't got that extra time up your sleeve to get your muscles ready to respond to what you want. Then we have the other end of the spectrum, the physically active kids who probably have pretty good muscle tone, but that little edge that's even better than typical. You know, those fantastic sports people that can stand on their little toe and do pirouettes that we'd all love to do. So that we do have people that have equally fantastic skills, but often that's probably less noticeable and less of a concern, because these are the kids that are jumping off the roof, falling on the ground, and don't hurt themselves because they somehow have control over that. Having said that, I should say one more thing about the low muscle tone kids. These are the kids that we call the flopmeisters, because they don't necessarily hurt themselves. What happens is they crumble when they fall, and because their muscles are a bit like the Michelin man, you know, the sort of pudgy looking things, they don't hurt themselves nearly as much. So pain isn't always a good indicator about how the muscles are working. So what does this mean that the kids with postural control difficulties then look like in terms of the playground? They are the kids that are less likely to have control with one foot off the ground. They're the kids in the shopping centre that are going to have difficulty with things like moving escalators. They're not going to be good at quick moving sports activities. They're not going to be great at changing direction rapidly. They're going to be more awkward, more clumsy, fall more often, and also when they start to fall, their recovery from a fall isn't nearly as good as it could be.